Hello and welcome to the Forgotten Manual Special Power Block Edition with special guest Dale Hassinger. We'll get to that. You know Dale from vCrux, but we'll get to that. So today we're going to cover off on an amazing Power Block session around monitoring Aria operations, unlocking the potential of automation and logs and a whole bunch of fun stuff that Dale's going to talk about. And I don't have to, but let's move to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing here. So this is a 30 to 45-minute session where we're going to be talking about, I didn't know you could do that, because that's what these sessions have been about, right? They're the value of what you can do, things you didn't know, new features, real world examples, all that fun kind of jazz. And there's some really special juice that's coming in this particular session. So I am really excited about what we have in place here. Speaking of which, hey, it's me, CXI, Christopher Kusek. This is my little happy little slide. I'll throw some little fun information out there. I've been a vExpert since the start of the program. Here's two of my recent books of many, so many books, and some various ways to contact me. But you watching this video alone shows you know how to contact me and how to reach me. But I say enough about Christopher, and let's get down to Dale. Dale, why don't you introduce yourself and get into the meat of the things?
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, I'm a senior cloud solutions architect. I'm on the same team as Christopher. I think we have a pretty awesome team here at VMware. I've been part of the vExpert program myself since 2020, and also part of the cloud management. There you can see my contact information if you want to follow me on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And there's the address to my blog site. I do blog about the Aria products, and my content is usually questions that customers ask me about that I feel are interesting, that I want to write a blog about and share with the V community. And there's a QR code if you want to quickly get out to my website. And that's kind of what this Power Block was. I've been collecting questions that I get from doing demos of the Aria products, so we thought we would do a Power Block and share what kind of questions we're getting asked by our customers. So quick agenda. What I'm seeing out in the field is customers don't know that they can set like a home dashboard. I'm going to show some examples of how you can show the VMware Cloud Services status, or like the Zoom status web pages using a text display widget. Some pretty cool Automation Central stuff that we're going to show, how to do snaps and reboots. More and more of my customers are starting to use the Automation Central. And then like for changing the snapshot age, I've had a couple customers in one day come to me and say, hey, how comes we can't snapshot or remove snapshots that are less than 7 days? So we're going to do a quick review of that. Then we're going to show you how you can monitor vCenter and Azure VMs with the same dashboard. And then something that I was on a demo myself today that I added at the last minute that I think is pretty cool is in the latest releases of operations. If you go and look at your views, it'll show you the usage of where, like, which dashboards are using those views. So that's pretty cool. So setting a home dashboard, it's pretty neat. So let's go into this is mostly going to be live demos. So on my screen now, you're going to see this is what it looks like out of the box. And if you look at the top, you'll see a Launchpad, multi-cloud, and then there's nothing to the right. But let's say that when you're using the product, there's a certain dashboard that you always want to have as being something to get really quick access to. So let's come
And
down
Dale,
to,
I want to note right now you're in Aria Operations running in an on-premises environment, but the same steps you'd be taking would apply to running in VMware hosted SaaS cloud, the same as you are running on-prem, right?
that's correct. Yeah, setting the home page. There isn't anything that I'm going to show today that would be any different on-prem versus the SaaS version. So here's a dashboard that shows a lot of different information like vCenter, health, and stuff. So maybe you're like, hey, this is where I always go as soon as I sign in. So let's make that our home page. So up here at the top, next to the name, you'll see actions. And when you see this set as home landing page, when you set that, you pick OK. So now when you come back to home, you're going to notice there's this third tab. So as soon as you would come in, you don't have to go digging through the menus and try to find, all right, under which folder did I save that? So you can immediately go to what you feel is your favorite dashboard. So if you have that set and you're like, oh, that's not the one I really wanted, all you have to do is just come down to another dashboard. Let's say you have another one that becomes your favorite, and you're like, hey, I wish I could really see that one every day. So when you come down to, let's go to my vCenter and Azure one, because maybe I'm putting more stuff out in Azure, and I'm like, hey, I'd really like to make that my home. All you gotta do is just same process, make that your home page. And then when you come back home, now that's going to be your home page. So
And
that's,
I know Brock, the infamous Brock from BrockPeterson.com likes to call these his morning coffee dashboards.
yep.
First thing you go and you look at in the morning and such, right?
Yes. So I have, yeah, and speaking of Brock, I do have some demos. So that was a live demo on how to share it. But then I have another lab area that I have some dashboards. So here's some example dashboards that maybe you would find interesting that could be your home pages. Different ideas for you to say, hey, this is my drink my coffee. Let's go see these kinds of homepage. So something that I used a lot when I was a customer to look at data, I wanted operations to become that single pane of glass. Some people refer to it that way, is the text display widget. So what I'm going to do is show you some dashboards. So if you didn't know, VMware Cloud Services has a status page. And then even like Zoom has a status page. So if you're using the SaaS version of the VMware products or using Zoom or whatever, you can use the text display widget and actually show that information. So a lot of the SaaS products that are on the market today will have a status page. And if you look down over here, and it's just like we teach our users, to look for green as being good. If you notice here in the VMware status page, you see all these green check boxes. Hey, that means things are all right. Or over here in Zoom, if your environment uses Zoom for meetings and chat and stuff, you can quickly get the status of Zoom. I recently had a customer say to me, hey, I really love RV tools. How can I get that information into operations? Because if you looked at like some of the health and stuff under RV tools, they'll talk about zombie files and a couple items that you don't really see in operations. And so if you go out to my blog site, I have a blog article that I wrote on how to do this, and I have the code. But if you notice, here's all this information that is coming from RV Tools. So you can schedule a task to run every day, go out to RV Tools, bring that data in, and turn it into web pages that you can then display within a dashboard. So it kind of becomes your single pane of glass.
I mean, and especially that's really nice because, while operations does have orphan disks, sometimes you may have some, but orphan disks are attached to, an object, blah, 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 right? You may have some zombie files out there that don't show up or relate into the orphan disk model. So it gives you more ways of having visibility into, well, waste, right?
Yep. And when you add a text display widget, it'll ask you, is it an HTML and a URL? So as long as you put in the URL that you would use from your browser to get to that web page, and when you save that, whatever that web page is will show up within your text display widget. So it just kind of lets you think outside the box a little bit, to see some data that you wouldn't. And if you noticed on my one overview example, I'm showing weather. When I was a customer, we had data centers in multiple states. And if we would start getting tickets with connectivity issues or something related to like the weather, I'm like, let's just show, hey, here's the weather. I'm showing for Palo Alto, California, and the town that I live in, Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. Because I don't know what it's like, at another location. So maybe that just gives you a little bit of a heads up. Hey, here's what's going on. So here's some examples, like I was showing you with the weather. You can include that kind of information. Here's the RV tools. So now let's look at some Automation Central that I find that the customers are starting to ask more and more about, and they're doing some really cool stuff. So if we go into Automation Central, I think the biggest item that my customers are talking about using with Automation Central is cleaning up old snapshots. So if you go into Automation Central, you go into Add Job, you'll see here's some of the things that you can do: delete old snapshots, delete idle VMs, downsizing, and then under additional actions, when you click your, like if you're doing vCenter or Azure, and I'm going to get into more details there, I'll show you real quick. If you say, all right, the virtual machine, you can do power off, power on, reboots, and schedule that stuff. So let's look at the snapshots first. And the question that has come up a couple times recently is they're like, hey, I would really like to use this to clean up snapshots, but our policy is it needs to be less than 7 days. And out of the box, if you notice, I can't go less than 7 days. And if you go under optimize and reclaim, let's close this. Under reclaim, if you go to settings, where it says snapshots older than, default is 7. So let's say you want to change that so that you can set your job to go down to 2 days. Maybe you have a policy that says your snaps can't stay there longer than 2 days. So if we make the change here and we hit save, so now when you go back to Automation Central, you want to add a job. I want to delete old snaps. Let's give this a name. So we'll say delete old snaps. So now you notice that it'll show you 2 days, because I changed that out of the box setting. But if you want to go up to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever you want, so whatever that value that you set under the optimize settings is the minimum number. So let's just say,
Well,
hey,
and I want to stress one thing that, I mean, people often forget about is this is the deletion of snaps that you set for the scope that you defined, which is to say you can have one vCenter say, hey, I want these ones to delete after 2 days, but then you can select a different vCenter or even folder within that vCenter, or even down to an individual virtual machine within that vCenter to say, yeah, but this one I want you to delete after 7 days or something further out. So just because you're modifying the age, that does not dictate that it's going to apply universally or anything along those lines, right?
right. And one thing I always had when I was a customer is you're always going to have that one app owner that, if you come up with a standard that says 3 days, that they're always going to say, oh, I can't delete my snap to, maybe a week or two. So what I'm going to show is part of creating this job. So I made it that I could go down to 3 days. So if you go to your scope, kind of like Christopher said, I can come over here and say, all right, anything in my vCenter, if there's a snapshot, I'm going to delete it. But then you can do a filter criteria. So in my vCenter, what I did for the people that'll come back to you and say, hey, don't delete my snap, is I added a tag to my vCenter. So the category, I made it snap, and the tag name I said do not delete. So if I come through here and say, all right, tag category is snap, and if I say that the tag name, as long as it does not contain, so if you say do not, so that's the name of my snap, or the name of my tag. So if the VM has that tag applied to it, it will not automatically clean up that snap. So that's a nice way that if you have this automation built, that you can make it that you're not going to delete snaps that you're not supposed to. And then you can set it to run every day. So let's set it for tomorrow morning. I live in the Eastern time zone. Make it for 1 o'clock in the morning. It's going to run every day and to create. So now if you look under the schedule here, you can see it's going to run every day. It's going to delete every snap that is 3 days or older, and then not delete any snaps that have that tag applied. Now, some other nice jobs to think about, being that operations is multi-cloud. So let's do some power. Let's say at the end, if you have some, I have my operations connected to Azure, and let's say at the end of the day, to try to save some money, you want to power off some VMs. So if I call this job Azure Power Off, so that's where that additional actions came into play here. So if we say my adapter is my Azure adapter, and it's my virtual machines, and I want to power off. So when we go next, when we look at the scope within my vCenter, I have a custom group for environment that is called my Azure Power On, Power Off VMs. So we put that into our scope, and then when we come over here to say preview the scope, here you can see these Power Block VMs that I have out in Azure are part of that scope. So before that, don't forget, I always say, go preview your scope so that you can see what is going to be affected by this job. And then I'm not going to really filter anything for this job like I did for the snaps. And let's say starting today, Eastern time zone. I'm going to run it every day, but if everybody's home, maybe let it run a little longer than, they go home at 5 o'clock. So let's say 7 o'clock, I'm going to power off those VMs. So now every day, those VMs will get powered off at 7 o'clock. And then when you create the jobs, I could then use the same group and everything. And when you go under additional actions, when we say pick Azure, pick virtual machines, I could create another job that says power on tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. So then you get that window of time to try to save a little bit of money on some cloud native VM. And also,
One of the things I love about the additional action section is, I mean, your environment just has a connection to Azure, but if it did have the GCP or if it did have the AWS, it would have those adapter types listed. But what I like about that is whether you're running an on-premises workload or you happen to have, native public cloud workloads that you're managing and operating, we have those integrations. One, it's nice. We've got those integrations. I can power off, power on. There's not a lot we can do, but that's something we can do. But what I like most about that is if we have the integration to do that part, the expansion and growth of being able to do more in that place in the future the door's already open. Then it's just a matter of enabling more features. And that is one of the parts that really excites me about, the operations. And there's more that we can do, and we're already plumbed to do other stuff in the future. So super excited about that. So that way, this truly is that operations platform for on premises, native, hybrid cloud workloads or private cloud workloads, but also those native public cloud workloads. I can continue managing and supporting all those environments, as opposed to having to maintain several dozen different dashboards and views, and different tools just to try to get, eyes on things.
Yeah, I have a customer that, I was showing how to do it with Azure. They wanted a way to reboot their vCenter VMs, and it's the same thing. It's a VM, and the action, instead of power on, power off, they wanted to reboot because they had some automation in place that would push down the Microsoft security updates every month, but they didn't really have a good tool to schedule that reboot. So what they do is they vCenter and they want to do a reboot, and they created a job within operations. And then they created some tags in vCenter. It was like, Sunday morning at 1 a.m. do a reboot. And then maybe some of their other servers, they would have, Wednesday morning at 1 a.m. let's do a reboot. So you could set up a couple jobs based on vCenter tags, or you could go by names, or even pick folders or anything that you want, whatever makes sense in your environment, that you could schedule reboots to put the Microsoft updates on your VMs. So lots of uses within Automation Central. I see more and more customers starting to use that. So hopefully that gives you a couple things to think about to use those new features. So we did the demo, and let's go through here. So like I was showing how you could do Azure VM reboots and stuff in Automation Central or vCenter. I have a dashboard that I have that to kind of show that, that whole multi-cloud, make it that your users don't need to worry about where the VMs are. I have mine connected to Azure, but it could be AWS or VMC, whatever, wherever you want. So I have this dashboard that I wanted to show. So we go down to my dashboards. What I like about this is when you kind of make it fit whatever data that you want to see. So if we look at this single dashboard, it's going to show you your vCenter health, all your data stores, your hosts. If you look at the top row, host maintenance. Did I leave a host in maintenance mode? If there is, it'll start to show red. Your VMs for vCenter. Did I have any snaps on vCenter? But then over here, if you see where it says VM health, it's also showing Azure. So all my Azure VMs, if one of them was starting to have the health not be as good, that would start to show, the yellow, red, or orange. And then down here is your Azure VMs in a list. It'll show, CPU usage, so different information. And what's really cool is this object relationship widget here. As you pick your different Azure VMs, it's changing this data to show you, what resource group am I in? Here's my, this is my VM. If there's any, what else is it here? The resource groups, stuff like that. And then if you scroll down through here, and then here's Azure resource, all the resource groups in the area that I have. And then I even have it that, if the rule is no public IPs, if you notice, hey, there's 2 resource groups that have VMs that have public IPs, and that's where, I always teach users look for color, and then it kind of caught my eyes. It says, hey, there's some VMs out there that have public IPs. And then if we're scrolling down the list, as you pick your vCenter VMs, you can notice that the relationship map changes, and then also I'm showing some nice metrics that maybe you want to show on within vCenter. So there you can have one dashboard to show, and you could very easily break this up to have just an Azure dashboard and a vCenter dashboard. But I was just kind of trying to show some options that that you might like to to see how to make, and then if you, let's say you make this your home page. So like I showed earlier, if I set this as, oh, I must already have that as my home page. If we go and look, yes,
You're so good, you're already doing it.
yep.
Yeah.
So the reason that it didn't say set as is because it already was my home page. So you can see here's, maybe that's a good reason to have both items included. All right. Now here's something I actually learned today during a nice demo that I seen, was if you have a lot of views, sometimes you're always like, where am I using that view? So if we go into views, and if we go up to manage, now all my views, I start with my initials. So that way, here, let me show you, that's a little trick that I kind of use to know that it's something that I created, and I can quickly filter on that. So if you look at all these out of the box views, there's 758. So if I want to go and find something that I created, I always prefix it with my initials. And then when you come up here and you do the filter, very quickly you can see which ones are yours. And then this new column that they added in the latest on-prem version and in the SaaS version, they have this dashboard usage. And if you take one of your views, you can see that they all have at least a number 1. These ones that have like a number 3, these are the 3 dashboards that I'm using that view. If you have a single dashboard usage, and if you notice where it says reports, they're all zeros. In my lab, I don't really have any custom reports, so I have no views included in those. So I just thought that was a really nice new feature that got added just recently.
Yeah, that's super powerful and really cool, especially when you find, hey, I created this new, this new dashboard, and it's not looking the same way these other ones happen to be, and why? And then you can go and say, oh, yeah, you're using the wrong view, or you're using the default view, and rather we're using for all these other ones, we're using this custom view, and you can easily see that through that dashboard usage part of it. So that's super powerful.
Yeah, and if it's one that I created, it's prefixed with my initials. If I see the usage is 0 for both, it's like, why do I still have that in my environment? I could go in, look at it, say, yeah, I don't really want to use that anymore. And then I can just kind of keep things cleaned up a little bit easier.
And I just want to emphasize on one of the points you made about when you're creating your views you have here is when you have a view that you're like, oh, I love this view. This is everything I want, but I just need to change a little bit about it. Sometimes people will just go and edit their views. You should clone your view and go and make your changes on that one. So that way, when new updates may come out that may overwrite those changes or other types of circumstances and situations. But by cloning it, you are able to maintain the historical view of your data, and you're able to tweak and manipulate it whatever ways you want to without worry that it's going to disappear someday.
So yeah, quick summary. Hopefully you learned something by watching this. Your custom dashboards, it's a great way to have that home view that you can create. Think about ways that you might want to use the text display widgets. Um, I was showing this, like status pages and weather, and it could be whatever you want, as long as it's a link to a website that has the data that you need, and the website could be something that you created on your own too, which is that RV tools one that I have. The Automation Central, great way to keep your snaps cleaned up, scheduling reboots, save some money by powering on and off cloud native VMs, whatever your use case may be. And then the way that you can, think about this is monitoring your cloud native VMs also, all in that one pane of glass. And then I showed you how you can see where your views are being used. So several tips and tricks today. Hopefully you learned something. If you want to stay connected, I did have my information at the beginning of the slide, but I'll show it again. There's my email. If you want to give me a follow, anytime I write a new blog post, I'll put it out on Twitter to let people know. And there's the address to my blog site. And then if you want to scan that QR code through to get easy access. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. And thank you, Christopher, for inviting me to join you today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dale. Your blog is so amazing. It's an excellent resource for everybody. So definitely everybody should be reading it and subscribing to it and going back and reading the old stuff because there's some gems out there. I don't remember. Do you have one more slide?
Nope, that's it.
There we go. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed this little session here. We definitely learned some fun and interesting things, and we're gonna wrap it. This is CXI and Dale out.